What's good, beautiful people? Y'all have been following me in my plant mania for like a year now as I run around doing weird stuff, growing this Amish farmer beard. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the love, the attention, the inspiration you've given and got from me, showing me that you're planting seeds, even that you're thinking about it. It means a lot. I think it's what we need to be doing right now, among many other things. But I've been using this term in these videos and I realize I haven't really explained it. Permaculture is essentially a design philosophy based in large part on observing indigenous technologies around the world and in the past and seeing what do they do smart and how do they relate to the world in a regenerative, intelligent, healing way and get what they need. And how do we combine that knowledge from across the globe and from across history with modern science and some hippie vibes, basically. I was asked a year ago, I'm at my mom's right now house sitting. She asked me to install some garden beds, so I've got a chance to really sit with them and lock in with what I did well. And I want to share y'all, here's the process I went through. Here are the 12 principles of permaculture. So when I was asked to do this, I thought, okay, I got to go take a look at the soil. And I was unconsciously doing principle number one, which is observe and interact. I got to see what is the conditions of this site. And on this site, there was this pretty not so great clay soil. This is actually a decent crumbly block. The stuff in here was like really hard to get through. There was one type of plant that was kind of just eking out an existence on top of it and had a bunch of these weeds, oxalis, little clover-looking things that are actually not good. So I interacted. I observed, okay, the soil needs help, and I mixed in sand and compost to break up the clay because clay is really fine. You want some big sand particles and big, organic matter in there. I then spread in clover seeds because I noticed this stuff that's kind of like clover was already growing here. So I'm like, okay, let me get something similar that's actually going to be beneficial for the soil. So I interacted by mixing the soil into a consistency I wanted and then spreading the seeds that I wanted. I of course then watered them and they began to do principle number two, which is to collect and store energy. So when these clovers photosynthesize, which you can see them all doing right now, they are taking sunlight and turning into sugars. They're putting those sugars into their roots and feeding bacteria, which then feed them. In this case, they have a special relationship, legumes do, all the legumes, with nitrogen fixing bacteria. So not only is it breaking up the soil, putting roots in there, letting water get in, protecting the soil for microbial life to develop, it is also actually fixing nitrogen. So I'm making green fertilizer while I'm here. And this nitrogen rich stuff, if I don't want this growing here, I can pull this, if it's intruding on my bricks or whatever, I can pull that out and take this essentially green fertilizer and put it on my garden beds to feed vegetables or whatever. So that is catch and store energy. We took energy from the sun and we're putting it into the ground. All right, principle number three is obtain a yield. So if you're getting something out of your interaction with the earth and it's something positive and nourishing for you, you're more motivated to continue doing that. If you know your food comes from the ground, you're going to take better care of the ground. So obtaining yield is put early in this because I think it's really important that we feel totally okay and actually awesome in the abundant interaction with the earth. So we have, my mom's eating tons of green beans out of here. They love those things. I come here often, and when I do come to visit, I'll snag a bunch of borage, clovers, amaranth, sweet potato greens, and there's tons of dried beans, barley, flax, actual grains that I could eat if I wanted to eat these. I'm going to replant them because it's a yield not just for me but for the earth. These beans are going to go straight back into the ground where they came from. So yeah, get something from what you're doing and it will motivate you to keep going, and if you are benefiting from your interaction with the earth, you're going to love it more. Apply self-regulation and accept feedback is principle number four, and the last principle is creatively use and respond to change. So how did I do that here? One, self-regulation, this stuff literally self-seeded. So this borage, these clovers, I got them in and then they started self-seeding. These are all little borage plants. I chose species that I knew would self-seed as well. So clover, nasturtiums in here. This is a pile of compost that had all these seeds that dropped right here and just started spreading. So let the thing grow itself in a way. And then accepting feedback and creatively responding to change. Just one example of that is I used to have this stone right here and this big plant grew in the way, and I also noticed people weren't using it. They were walking right here anyways, so I moved the stone where people are part of nature too, so we're something to observe and interact with, In this case, I saw people were stepping here, so I put the stone over here and freed up some space for whatever's going to grow there. All right, next two principles: use and value renewable resources and produce no waste. So Bill Mollison puts the use and value renewable resources as always favor biological solutions, and in a way that's what I did. That's how I started off. So when I came and saw that this ground was beat up, I could have bought chemical synthetic fertilizer and put it in the ground and thought that that was going to fix things. I might have created a quick bacterial bloom, and that might have made a couple plants thrive for a season, but I wanted to favor a renewable approach. So I used my physical biological labor and I put seeds in the ground, and these seeds are now doing the work for me. It's self-renewing system in a way, so it's very sustainable, the essence of sustainable. And that system that drops its own seeds, makes its own soil, also doesn't need to produce waste. So if I don't want these clovers to go outside of the bed, I am now taking this quote-unquote waste product that I could put in the green bin, and instead of doing that, again, I'm feeding my vegetables with it. All right, the next one is design from pattern to detail. So I don't want to start telling the earth you're going to do this for me. I want to look at what is the broader patterns going on, where are the energy flows, and in particular for plants, it's going to be light and water. In addition to the earth we've already observed, I want to look at where is the sun coming from. In this case, it rises in the east, and it's going to go this way and set in the west. I noticed there are no trees in the east, so the morning sun is not going to be blocked, and this side has a lot more trees, and it's going to block some of the evening sun. So it doesn't look like it right now, but in general, this side is going to be more shaded than that side, and you'll notice there is different forms and heights of vegetation on both of these, even though I planted the same seeds all over the place. So nature's telling me something. There's a pattern here. This side tends to like to grow clovers. That side tends to like wildflowers and amaranth and more dry tolerant stuff, right? It's also further from the hose, and it gets more sun. So I'm not going to just walk up and tell nature, hey, put a wet living plant over there and put a dry living plant over here. I'm going to observe what nature tells me as a larger pattern, and then I'm going to decide the details of where I'm going to plant what. If I wanted to plant something, now I know what grows better here and over there. All right, next principle, integrate rather than segregate. So I could have seen, as was initially the case, this whole frontal area as just like an entryway to the garden beds. It was just diamondia and some weeds. That was it. Instead of seeing these as separate entities, I said, okay, how can this feed that? And maybe even this feed this. So in addition to the green manure that I'm pulling up from the clovers that I'm putting up there, in addition to some seeds like bean seeds from down here that I put in these beds, there's also, pollinators that come for these flowers, and then the vegetables are more likely, whatever vegetables need pollination are more likely to be pollinated. So the two beds are interacting. There's seeds from up here going down here as well. There's things coming for stuff in here that is benefiting this as well. So integration. All right, the last three principles over these last two slides are: 1, use and value small and slow solutions; 2, use and value diversity; 3, use the edges and value the marginal. Let's look at something that's going on here in these beds. It's kind of interesting. I got some, probably like a little rat or something, is digging these holes, you can see, to try to get the beans that I just planted there. All good. I don't want a rat in the vegetables if possible though, so this is not dissuading. Whatever it is, it's small enough to get through that. So a quick extreme solution could be, I'm gonna get some rat poison and or traps or something like that, right? I don't want to put poison near where people I love are eating from, and I also value animal life, and I don't want to just go killing things indiscriminately unnecessarily. So I'm gonna think of what are some other solutions, right? How do we use maybe the edges of this to value the marginal? How do we use some kind of diversity to dissuade that animal from coming back? So one thing I've started to do, and it's kind of a slow solution, is to plant allium plants. So I'm planting the extra green onion bottoms, garlic bulbs that begin to sprout around the perimeter. I'm using this edge as, in a way, a weed bear. They might like to eat beans. They probably don't want to eat a giant garlic clove. So if they dig up a few more beans, they're gonna hit a clove, maybe they're gonna get dissuaded, right? That's my hope. It's a slow solution, but it might help in a way that fits with my value system and grows food at the same time. So I'm creating this perimeter defense of these allium plants while there's stuff that I like to eat, there's stuff I want to put in my food. This whole thing, in a way, is an exercise in really using the edges and valuing the marginal, because this was not something that was seen as capable of growing stuff or helping grow food. It was just the entryway to the garden beds, and it has now, as you can see, totally overtaken the garden beds in productivity. A lot more to talk about. Thank y'all for rocking with me.